Hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to review the practice problems of Chapter 2, which is based on Lecture 2 and the book uh, Chapter 2, Structural Factors by Robert Shiller in the book of Irrational Exuberance. So first, what is meant by the fact that interest rates are the price of time? So if it's price of time, it should be based on time and it's a price between now and the future. So the interest rate, because the interest rate depends on the risk appetite towards time, which we normally refer to as patience in everyday use. And if you are very patient, you can lend out your money to the borrowers on the market and charge a low interest rate. Uh, but if you are very impatient, you can you will borrow on the market with and accept a high interest rate or lend to the market with a high interest rate. So the interest rate is it's just the price between now and the future. So that's what we mean by the price of time. And if you think interest rate is going to rise in the future, you can borrow now and return the payment in the future, which will hedge you against interest rises. So it's basically some arbitrage between now and the future. Number two, what is the basic bond relationship with interest rate? We covered this problem in lecture 2, and we can basically show the bond price with yield in price yield curve. So how do we see this curve? Why is it shaped like this? By the way, the tangent line, we call it the duration, which is the first derivative, and the curvature, we call it convexity, which is the duration's sensitivity to the yield, which is the second derivative of price on yield. So why is the curve like this? Because first, if we use interest rate as the discount rate, or you can call it required rate of return or the yield of bond, we can discount the bond coupon payment and the principal repayment on the interest rate as discount rate. So if the yield or the required rate of return or the interest rate is high, if we discount on this rate, the bond price will be low. So it's basically some opportunity cost, because if interest rate is high, you can basically lend the money to others instead of invested in the bond. And we can also think of it as a result of liquidity in the market, because if the interest rate is low, there is plenty of liquidity in the market where did those money go? They can go to they can flow into the stock market or the bond market, and plenty of them flow into the bond market, and the price as a result of the demand and supply will rise if the funds flow into the bond market. Another explanation is that the Fed open market operation, which is the open market buying and selling of bonds, is the major tool the Fed uses to set the interest rate target. The quantitative easing, which Professor Ricci referred to in last lecture, is also this kind of open market operation. So if Fed purchases the bond from the Treasury, the bond price will rise because the demand is high, and the interest rate will be low because Fed basically prints the money, offers liquidity in the market to buy the bond from the Treasury. Number 3, what is the Fed model? Fed model is also referred to Yardeni model in CFA exams, although with some minor modifications. So the essence of this model is that it equates the bond market return with the stock market return. So if bond market and stock market are in equilibrium and fairly valued, when the 1 year forward-looking earnings, excuse me, there's a typo. So the 1 year forward-looking earnings yield will equal the 10-year Treasury note yield. Because Yardeni think that if either side of the equation rises, money will flow into that market and the return will drop. So this is kind of a equilibrium concept. So it must equate, it must equal to each other, because otherwise there is arbitrage of opportunity. Number 4, define real interest rate. According to Schiller, why are they relevant? So real interest rate is basically nominal interest rate minus inflation. According to Schiller, if we consider real rate instead of nominal rate, stock market return is not that magical because the inflation over the years have always been rising, especially in the 1970s, the oil crisis. Yeah, that's basically the most serious inflation the United States had. So if we consider the real rate instead of nominal rate, the high-tech firm's profitability is not that magical. It's just some irrational illusions. I'm sorry. The investor had about high-tech firms in the internet bubble. We can see that Amazon is still in deficit, although its stock price has been rising over the years, and the return for the stockholders are high, but the actual return, the profitability is not that great. Number 5, how do inflation index bonds work? What are the US inflation index bonds yielding today at 5 and 10-year maturity from the Treasury.gov? So the most important difference between inflation index bonds, which is also called Treasury TIPS, which in full is Treasury Inflation Protected Security, TIPS. So the major feature is that the TIPS adjust the principal according to inflation, which they use the consumer price index. They adjust the principal, not the coupon. So what are the US inflation index bonds yielding today at 5 and 10-year maturity? I didn't find it on Treasury.gov, but I found it on Bloomberg, which is on the Bloomberg Market Watch on the bonds. So we can see from this picture that Treasury Inflation Protected Securities has 4 major maturities: 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year. And they basically construct a yield curve based on the TIPS yield. And for the 5-year, the yield is minus 0.47%. For the 10-year, the yield is minus 0.08%. For the 20-year, it's 0.2%. And for the 30-year, it's 0.5%. So the yield is pretty low, which is mainly because it's less risky, and which you can. And another reason is that the Fed funds rate is so low. It's like 1.7, something like that, in the 1% range. So the yield on the Treasury inflation protected securities are even lower because it's in the risk sense safer than the cash. So the yield is less risky, so the yield must be even lower than the federal funds rate. The rate the banks and the Fed use in daily transactions are called federal funds rate, which is the benchmark rate in interbank offerings. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me through Canvas or my email, which is lumingc1@uci.edu. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.